Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. I'm going to do an extra special shout out today to the people who support me on Patreon, as I recently bought a hard drive which will have to be paid for come the end of the month, and it will be getting funded by the people who support me on Patreon, as is the case with a lot of the repairs and maintenance I do on the equipment. So the very reason this show is running as smoothly as it is at the moment is thanks to the people who support me on Patreon. So a big shout out to all of you who do so. So I'll do an individual shout out to all of you individual Patreons. So massive appreciation and thanks to Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Billy Highvault, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As The Earth, Chow Young Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Wayne Foster, Erwin Jennison's, Edwin Johnson, Felix Hung, Fireball X, Godrockin, Henrik86, Jeronism, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Matt, Nagara, Naibai, Qatar Craig, Reinhardt, Rene, Sally Ballis, Silver Umbrella, Skeptic936, Texas Mike, The Flat Earth Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock App, theflatearthchannel.com, Tina Baker and Tom Herkins. So a massive shout out of appreciation, one and all, to the people who support me on Patreon. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior and 10th Man in G+, and a few people in Discord as well. So hello one and all.
Good morning.
Hello morons over in Discord that don't ever speak.
They're not actually off mute yet.
Oh.
There you go.
Thank God it's a glorious day where we don't have to cite Hillbilly Blue Balls' gas pressure without a container video, and we realise that we don't cite it because it's got a container in it. Shout out to Danny Faulkner that doesn't realise, or probably didn't even watch the video, or did watch the video and just ignored the fact that there's a container. So shout out to you, sir.
Yeah, devastating weekend. If your name's Dr. Daniel Faulkner. Highly embarrassing.
Shocking. Can't believe it. When I first saw that, Nathan, when I first saw him commenting, I was like, oh my God. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I could tell by your attitude when you first exposed it to us that you're in disbelief. So you're saying things like, I can't believe he's done that. As in, that's something that he shouldn't have done. Whereas obviously the reaction from us is, no, it's great. It demonstrates that he's a liar and can be called such. He claimed to be able to debunk any flat earth claim based on the researchers who are trying to debunk flat earth claims going to the wrong sources, in his words, the internet. And upon being posed a question by Nathan Thompson, he's gone to the internet and found the redneck retard hillbilly blue balls and cited him, in spite of your correct assessment that it has a container in it. So, just ludicrous, the fact that he can make those sorts of assertions. No, you can't debunk any flat earth claim, Dr. Daniel Faulkner. In fact, the very first thing that's been verbally put on a video in our environment that we know of that involves you was you being posed the question, how can you have gas pressure without a container? You didn't give an answer. You went to the internet and posted hillbilly blue balls as your answer. Well, that's not an answer. That's useless.
Well, it is an answer, but it's the wrong answer.
It's the wrong answer. Well, that's what you get if you go to somebody that's big-headed enough to claim to debunk all claims. Well, no, you can't. And no, you haven't. You are, in fact, a liar. Every word in your book becomes a lie based on what's happened over this weekend. A few of the commenters picked up on it. All right, so I'm justified now to go out and call Dr. Daniel Faulkner a liar because he is. Yeah, that's correct. He lied. He couldn't debunk all claims. He'd already been posed that question back in 2016, and while we couldn't confirm that he hadn't come up with an answer in the meantime, now we can. The man's a liar. He'd already been posed that question, couldn't answer it in 2016. He can't answer it now. He's gone to a reference that's relatively recent anyway, and it doesn't answer the question. So just, call it what it is. Lying. That's what it is. Lying to sell books. Claiming to debunk something you can't because you want to sell a book. Liar.
The other thing, of course, is the book that he's written is supposed to be debunking the claims of the flat earthers, right? Most of us don't actually make claims because we realize that we've then got to prove that it's flat, because that's what they always come back with. Show us your working model. Show us it's flat. Yeah, well, what can we realistically do with a P900 and a compass, right? But what he claims in his book to debunk the claims made by us on gravity, he doesn't even cite the current position in science. He seems to forget about Einstein. Now, whether you agree with Einstein or not, and obviously we don't agree with Einstein, but at least we tell people that's your current position. You've got to explain how bendy space-time causes the Titanic to sink, for example. This guy didn't even mention Einstein. So whether you agree with Einstein or not, he is your current science, and you better start citing him, ballers, because you can't pick and choose your science. We can, because we're questioning it. But you morons, you've got to bend space-time to cause shit, and we all know that can't happen. Morons.
Getting bleak for ball belief. You were saying when we spoke earlier that you'd had a discussion with a few people regarding gas pressure without a container, and their conclusion was to concede, essentially, from what you told me. That was the main detail I picked up on, anyway.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Are we going to have that conversation now, or are we going to do it live?
Probably better off doing it live.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one.
Okay. You had a good weekend, 10th man?
Wonderful. I was just thinking over what you guys were saying as well on the weekend. There's a couple of wins here that are related with Faulkner. One was Michio Kaku saying that they don't use the scientific method, seat of the pants, all that kind of stuff that, Chocolate's got verbatim. But you can just listen to Michio Kaku say it. So he basically did a Danny Faulkner to the science community. I mean, that was huge in its own. I mean, if Danny Faulkner never did what he did, just what Michio Kaku said, that he doesn't know anyone in his field that does the scientific method. Well, now if you take that as a huge win, which it is for Flat Earth, tie that to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who said a football going through the field goals of was affected by Coriolis. Well, obviously what he's saying is that if a ball goes up in the air and the Earth is moving underneath it, that's why the field goal was made in. Well, in that case, the flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA should take 1.5 hours. Boom, another big mistake from one of their high priests, right? And then he also said, oh, well, the Earth is flat, but you really got to get really high up for it to see the curve. In the meantime, every picture we see shows the Earth going convex, concave, and flat from the fisheye lenses, the trickery that they use from NASA. So that's a big win there. And then here comes Danny Faulkner. And he writes a book. He doesn't answer a simple question. How can you have gas pressure without a container? For whatever reason, that's okay. Should have kept his mouth shut. The minute he posted Hillbilly Blue Balls, ball game over.
Yeah, he should. The last bit was the most accurate. He should have kept his mouth shut. I said this to Anthony earlier. If he'd have just backed off and said nothing, he'd still be getting away with his lie. I can debunk all flat Earth claims. And the fact that he sat in silence, he got plenty of justifiable reasons for not answering Nathan Thompson, and he's already given them. Well, all well and good until you actually answer the question incorrectly with a citation from a redneck with a container in it. Then things all fall to pieces. Now you're branded a liar because you are. Talking to Dr. Daniel Faulkner, of course.
Yeah, I'd like to see him explain why he cited that and how you can use a container to prove no container. I mean, that would even be worse for him to try to explain it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. If he wants to continue digging this hole, he's welcome to. But he's already digged it deep enough. He's well in over his head already.
I'll pass him the link, Nathan, because I do have an open dialogue up with him at the minute. He hasn't completely stabbed me in the face because even though he doesn't like the fact that I'm challenging him, I'm not calling him personal names. I'm not making it a big deal about his person. I am saying that he's making claims and I'm challenging the claims, but I am on topic and he will listen to me if I make something. Should I pass him a link and see if he joins? I know he won't, but I'd just like the audience to know that he's been given the opportunity and he's not took it.
Yeah, he's welcome to. I mean, if you want to give him a more friendly link, i.e. send our panel link out to him, you're welcome to, yes. In other words, he doesn't have to sit in the rumpusing of Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, I don't think we should attack him anyway. Just his arguments, and I know you all agree with that already.
Oh no, but what they do is the minute they think they're starting to lose the arguments, they start making it. Oh well, why are you attacking me personally? And it's like it's not. We're attacking your comments. That doesn't make it personal, but they are your comments.
Yeah, but that's to be expected as a fallback move anyway. We get defensive as well when we get emotional about things that we care about. So that's going to happen to every human being, and we got to give him some latitude there. So if he does it, then we just say, okay, look. Let me restate. We're not attacking you. We're attacking your argument. So let's get back on topic. We just pull it back. I mean, one of the chief reasons ballers don't like flat Earth is the gravity. So I've just been reading up on gravity over the weekend. And this is their fallback. They got to have gravity. If they don't have gravity, it's all over, right? It's all over. Yet they got two gravities. Which one do you want?
No, they've only got one. One superseded the other. Let's not give them two. Let's correct them and say they only have the one.
No,
they
I
utilize
know.
two.
You didn't let me finish. You didn't let me finish. They got two gravities. You got to pick one.
The one guy in this chat, his name's Chris. Yes, gravity is a force. A force is something which causes a mass to accelerate. If you drop an object near the Earth's surface, it will accelerate at 9.8 meters per second squared until an upward force ends the acceleration. Oh, really? Not a fall or rest. Such as hitting a floor or going so fast that the upward force from wind resistance balances gravity. So after 1 second, it'll be going 9.8 meters. After 2 seconds, it'll be going 19.6. You can measure this and you can understand what is happening without knowing the mechanism by which it works. Then he goes on and on and on. And I've just said, Chris, here is a live link. I respectfully challenge you to join me live right now in front of an audience of 3,000 accidentally. Let's make that 300 people, and we'll see how well your claim stands up that gravity is a force. So if this guy does happen to join, he's going to be joining based on his arguments for gravity being a force. By the way, did the 10 citations hangout go out last night, Nathan?
No. You mean in the Daniel Faulkner clip?
Yes.
No, it was on a different show.
Was it not on, I asked you about this and you said it was on the 1980 channel and you said it was coming out on Saturday, then said Sunday.
No, Saturday. I was right the first time, but then I got confused with what you were asking about. So the 10 citations came at the very end of 10:27. And then when I put together the Daniel Faulkner clip, that pissed me off royally. I spent about 6 hours editing it. I got up at 7 and I think I finished at about 1 p.m. And by the end of it, I was like, yeah, I'm happy with that. I messed around with it a lot. Spent a lot of time on it. And then, because I had to go out, I rendered it and published it. And when I was listening to it in the car, I was like, this has got terrible audio. Well, maybe it's just the car. And I asked a few people in the chat, and they're like, no, it's fine. And then one guy was like, yeah, it sounds like your mic's gone wrong. I'm like, bloody hell. It's the second or third time it's done that when I've edited something that's complex on the iPad. It just causes the audio to go wrong. You know, like, it just puts me off doing it at all, to be honest. 6 hours of work, you shouldn't at the end of it render the video and have the audio completely different or shagged by comparison to what you've been watching and editing. That should just not happen. But that's, like I say, the second or third time it's happened to me with iMovie. It renders it and the audio's fucked. You're like, well, that was a waste of 6 hours, because you go in and try and correct the problem and it won't correct. Every time you render it, the same thing happens. So you're like, all right, so unless I start from scratch, and even then it might have the same issue, because I don't know what's caused it. So you just like, because QE was like, why didn't you put the 10 citations in? I'm like, because number one, I ran out of time. I can only it's my day off, technically. Sunday's the only day I don't have to do anything. And I did it anyway, because like, I find it fun. But at the end of 6 hours, when you've got a major problem to sort out, you're like, this isn't fun anymore. Yeah, it was work anyway, but you know what I mean? I don't have to put together a video like that. I don't have to spend 6 hours of my Sunday doing it. And when you have and it goes wrong, you're like, what the fuck? Well, I won't do that again then.
If this woman called Diane may join, probably won't, but if either Chris or Diane join, find out their names. Let's not do the rumpus thing to them. They're new people. Let's be very polite, very seedingly, horribly smarmy, and just remind them their current science isn't gravity being a force. They're not likely to join, but they might do.
Hey, Flatzoid.
Hello, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Good, mate. You?
Yeah, hectic busy these days.
Nathan, have you heard back the sound on your render?
Yeah.
It is a bit naff on that first bit from Arwin.
Naff on a bit from you. It's naff on a bit from Arwin. I've no idea why.
Just re-render it and see what happens.
I have. It's the first thing I did. As soon as I got home, I was like, right, I'll do that when I get home. So I got back from Birmingham and started fiddling with it. Tried to correct the audio issues, and it didn't work. I rendered it again, having changed a couple of things. I even trimmed out the sections without audio issues, and I got new audio issues. That was exactly what happened last time. Can't remember the video it was, but I didn't spend anywhere near as long on it. I remember that much, but I remember thinking, well, I'm not going to spend another 2 hours re-editing the same thing because I've got an audio issue now for no reason whatsoever. But in this instance, you're like, I already know. The choice is try and fix it. If it doesn't work, the only option is to start from scratch. Well, there's just no way I'm going to re-edit a six hours worth of work. Just no way. That's how it's going to remain. So I know QE is going to be disappointed. I got his message this morning. He's like, where are my 10 citations? That I felt really guilty of. You know, it's like, yeah, they were on a different show. That's why I missed them. I just forgot. And yeah, feel bad for not putting them in. And combined with the audio issues, which aren't that extensive. Like I say, I've listened to it 2 or 3 times to assess whether or not I'm going to republish it. And in the end, I decided not to, after assessing the comments and asking people how bad it was. Yes, it's got audio issues. Can you still hear what's being said? Yes, very clearly. It doesn't sound as polished as it could, but the information's still absolutely there, apart from the 10 citations. But having considered that as well, the 10 citations are specifically in regards to a rebuttal, not that specific claim. So while I'd be happy to potentially make a second video in regards to his rebuttal, because his rebuttal's gravity. But, you know, that's QE saying, well, I've got 10 citations countering that rebuttal. Well, that might be the case, but in that particular self-contained, isolated video, he's being asked how you can have gas pressure without a container and answering it. Should we also give the rebuttal he would subsequently give, and probably has in that comment thread, and our rebuttal to it? No, I think that would be its own self-contained video in regards to a different housekeeping question, gravity. So, on the one hand, I feel guilty that I didn't include it. Would I have included it if I'd have thought about it? Yes, I would, if I'm honest. So, there's obviously, therefore, I can see the justification for it being in there. It's not in there. It's been published. It's had 2,000 views already. So you're like, do I want to go to the effort of removing a video that's already had all the comments and discussion generated and all of the cheering and praise? It's been very well received. Nobody's moaning about the audio. And the rebuttal's not even mentioned in the comments or in the video. So after a lot of consideration, only because it was so much work to produce it, I've decided to leave it up and not re-edit it. So that is it, unfortunately. That video will remain as is.
It's cool.
Annoying though, it pissed me off. I was very upset. I'm not going to lie. This is what I do, right? I want the video to be good. Having spent 6 hours on it, rendering it, and then having to leave, yeah, I should have checked it. But having edited plenty of videos that are short and less complex and not had any audio issues, it's obviously not in the forefront of my mind. Oh, it might have an audio issue after rendering. Typically, yeah, with more time, I would obviously listen to the render before uploading it. And in this instance, I didn't. And it's sod's law that when you do a complex piece of editing and put a lot of time into it, that's when it'll go wrong and give you shit audio. On the other hand, it's 10% of the audio that's crap, which isn't enough for me to pull the video, but just be heartbroken and probably never watch it myself again.
On the other hand, no, it fills me with joy when I see someone do something like that, because when I send you a video and say, what do you think of this? And you say something like, yeah, you should have put this bit in instead. And I'm like, what do you mean you should have put this bit in instead? It took me fucking hours.
Yeah, no, I know. I totally sympathise. I mean, I got a grammatical error as well at the end. You know, the last thing I did was just before rendering it was put that end screen in, redneck pseudoscience at its finest. And I've put it's with an apostrophe. And again, when I watched it, I'm like, oh, God, I'm sure 99% of people probably wouldn't notice or care, but it's a grammatical error, and I'm like, how did I miss it? Well, because I'm in a rush after doing it and getting sick of it after 6 hours and having to rush out of the house. But now it's got a permanent grammatical error in there. I'm like, oh, not a major error, but enough for me to know that's wrong.
Nathan, our housekeeping question number 8, a single viable scientific hypothesis in the entire history of either astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics is so powerful because everything I've been reading last week of globe proofs is based on observe and declare. And yet when you ask for the hypothesis from a scientific method discipline, they can't, because they can't manipulate the independent variable. So when I look at all the housekeeping questions, they're all really got the scientific method in there in the question, any evidence of or any proof of. I think we have to really drill deep on the scientific method and show that these people, whenever they use the word science, it either means they followed the scientific method strictly and their hypothesis can be seen and retested, or they're just using the word science as a coverall for observe and declare. I know we know it, but I think we need to do either a 9th housekeeping question or just to show that we can always point people back to how they've hijacked science, even though we say it all the time, but really challenge them to show us the hypothesis. And what is a hypothesis?
Yeah, that will work well for the newbies coming to realizing the flat Earth.
Especially for the newbies, because I learned so much just when you guys started showing what the scientific method was. I said, wait a minute, well then it's got to be in written form. It could be redone by anyone, anywhere, and the same result would come out. But where is it? We can't find it. Okay, gravity, for example. Where is it? Well, which one you talking about? The Einsteinian? Well, how am I going to bend space-time? Well, I can't do that. It's a concept. Well, how about Newtonian? No, we don't believe in Newtonian. So you don't believe Newtonian anymore. Well, I can't. Then why could I even cite it if it's not even believed on?
Right, we've got to gradually introduce these points now that the more familiar audience has seen them be argued about and win, because obviously you've got to have their support for it to have any sort of real impact. And we have. But if we'd have just started with those housekeeping questions, any viable hypothesis from any of the disciplines of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics, and there might be another housekeeping question added as well, we'll see. But it's because you've got to see the arguments progress first before the concise question will make sense to somebody who's potentially going to pick it up and wield it. For the newbie, I don't know that it would be that useful, because they might not appreciate the significance of saying they don't have any scientific evidence. Most people would shrug their shoulders at that and go, oh well, so what? Okay.
Well, no, you're right. You're right. It takes time. This is the natural progression of language and understanding. What I'm saying is when we talk to Globers, they're always feeling comfortable and snuggy because they got science. Okay, what is science? And once we show science is hypothesis in the natural world and show us the hypothesis for gravity, don't have one. How about astronomy? Don't have one. Well, then what are you defending? And how are you defending?
This is the one topic that we can all safely say that the minute they use the word science, they actually mean pseudoscience, and they're about to try and deceive you.
But you're right. But see, that's because we're not under the spell anymore, and we know what the scientific method is, and we say, okay, what's your dependent variable? Well, what's that? Your observed phenomena in the natural world. Oh, no, I don't need that. The guy in the lab coat told me this is science. Well, this is what happened to Danny Faulkner. He got vetted out.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Sleeping Warrior, Flatzoid, and Brian. I believe that's it in G+. Very good to have you all.
Hey.
Good afternoon.
Hello. And we've also got a whole bunch of people in Discord as well. Hello, good morning or afternoon, wherever you may be in Discord. Good to have you.
Hello from Discord.
Hello.
Oh my God, there's somebody there.
There's always someone there, whether or not they'll reply. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from Redondo Beach.
Don't be
Not from Discord.
Someone say not from Discord.
Fancy giving, as we've been discussing it in the pre-show, I know the live audience won't be aware of this, but we've been discussing housekeeping in a little bit more detail, potentially because myself, Sleeping Warrior, Quantum Eraser, and any other ballbusters that want to join us are going to be doing some individual shows, potentially over this coming week, depending on if I can actually arrange it, because it's probably looking like it's going to be me actually producing them. So that's fine. I'll produce them, but I've just got to tie down QE and Sleeping Warrior. But like I say, that's spurred into a conversation of us discussing the finer details of some of the housekeeping questions. So as we've only just started, I know housekeeping is supposed to be quick, get it done with, move on. Do you want to actually talk about some of the questions in a little bit more detail, at least give the debunk for each question before we move on? If not, we'll just rattle through them.
Are you talking about doing like a flat earth clues of the housekeeping?
I suppose you could look at it in that way. They're not really clues, more absolute pummelings of the heliocentric religion rather than clues. But yeah.
Yeah, they're not clues, but yeah, I just meant in that way, like kind of it's just a series. That's a good idea.
I mean, yeah, we'll definitely do that. But did you want to carry on in the vein that we were in the pre-show or not?
Yeah,
I'm easy.
Oh, go on, somebody.
I see the housekeeping questions as they're asked, but I also see it from, say, a step back view as a whole. And as a whole, basically all of them are saying question everything. And if you're going to say science, then stick to the scientific method. And by the way, here's the scientific method. And then when you look at the housekeeping questions, how many of those things fall under the natural world and the scientific method could be used? If you can't vary the independent variable, it falls out of the scientific method. So how did they get these statements if it's not science and there's no hypothesis?
They didn't.
Correct. Hey, Arwen.
Hello.
Hey, Arwen.
Okay.
Hey, Arwen.
So the assertion of Earth curve, albeit as discussed in the pre-show with Neil deGrasse Tyson asserting that you've got to get 100,000+ feet in the air to see any curvature, we are still at ground level here in the trenches of flat Earth debate, arguing with people who believe that when you apply the formulas of a begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, you can describe the effects of obstruction at the horizon, I'll use their terminology, as Earth curve, i.e. it's being obstructed by Earth's curvature. Now in reality this is merely a hijacking of the effect of perspective. So an item getting smaller as it goes away from you is ignored in these mathematics. A 10-foot wall is a 10-foot wall at a mile, or 10 miles in their mathematics. It can also be a 10-foot wall at 10 million miles, and when drawn side profile, orthographic view, lovingly referred to as Muppet vision, because you see the side of your own head, then you can have a 10-foot wall at 1 million miles. You just draw a line between the two and write 1 million on it and say that the scale is such that you should see it at 1 million miles away. Now that's because they're using 10 feet. 10 feet won't change at distance. What actually is happening is the item's getting smaller. The angular size reduces with distance until it disappears. That's why things disappear in the distance perspective. But that effect has been hijacked and called Earth curve, which it's not. So the response to any signs of Earth curve is typically going to be met with, why are you utilising a begging the question? Because it assumes the R value already, assuming the outcome in the response. Begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator, to assert something which we see as an arbitrary position called the horizon is actually the reified edge of your Earth curve. So there is no response to any signs of Earth curve beyond the use of a perspective hijacking curve calculator which assumes its outcome. Anything anyone else wants to add in regards to Earth curve and the housekeeping question thereof?
Yeah. Is that 10th man or flat side? I was just going to say that the whole thing about Neil deGrasse Tyson and his 120,000 feet, you can't see Earth curve from 120,000 feet. He only said that. He only said that because he knows we're never going to see it. Like we should see it. We should see it from a high building. You know, if the maths are, if you look at the maths correctly, we should see it from basically a high building. Or nowhere. We should never have to go anywhere like up as far as the 35-foot high. 35,000 feet high in a plane to see it or anything else. We should be able to see it. It should be all around. It should be evident. Evident that it's there, but it's not. He knows we'll never see it. So he said 120,000 feet because he knows no one's going to be going up to 120,000 feet. The only people that go up there are NASA, you know. And other than that, all they have is Looming. And I've been looking at Looming, and it actually disproves what they're trying to prove with it. If Looming is what the mainstream say Looming is, from what I've been looking at, it actually disproves what they're trying to say.
Okay, I've got to stop you there because you're wrong. No, they don't have looming. What they assert is looming. Now, looming and sinking are refractive effects. The light changing its direction because it's changing. You can look this up if you look at Snell's law in terms of the application. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of why it does it, but that is an atmospheric effect. They aren't measuring the atmosphere. They're not taking endless measurements every meter between you and the observation. You're not doing that. What they do is apply something called terrestrial refraction and say it's looming. Now, looming, as I say, is an atmospheric effect, and to definitely account for it being looming, you'd have to take a certain amount of measurements and prove that that is actually the case, as opposed to it's only looming because our model says it shouldn't be there. But they don't apply looming, looming being an actual atmospheric effect. They apply terrestrial refraction, 7/6 of the begging the question R value I mentioned earlier in the debunking. So not only do they beg the question that Earth is a sphere, it's called a curve calculator, every outcome is a spherical one, but they also then bend light around the presupposition of a sphere at the rate of 7/6 of the radius value that they've presupposed at step 1. So it's a begging the question fallacy on steroids when you get to them claiming looming, in quotes, because it isn't. They're simply utilising the mathematics of terrestrial refraction, not atmospheric refraction. A begging the question fallacy on steroids, utilising the R value. So no, they don't have looming, in the same way as it would be equally preposterous for us to say, when they ask us, why is it being obscured? Well, sinking. Well, who the hell are we to assert that it's sinking? In reality, it's an angular size reduction that's caused it to disappear from bottom up at the most limited angle, but that's besides the point. We could just do as they do and make a baseless assertion that it's sinking. Well, no, you'd have to back that up with some sort of atmospheric measurements and some proof that that's actually what's occurring, rather than just saying it when applying 7/6R, begging the question fallacy of the R value twice removed.
I think the best thing you said, Nathan, was when it doesn't fit their model, and just fill in the blanks. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, when it doesn't fit the model, says, oh, you got to be 120,000 feet before you could see any curvature. Wait a minute. Your model says the Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference and 8 inches per mile square. We should be able to see it with the naked eye. No, 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 no. It doesn't fit my model. So I got to go now up 120,000 feet to see it. Okay, what about the 8 inches per mile to your 25,000? No, forget that.
Yes, because he's reifying the horizon. So when he's saying you can't see it, what's it? He's not giving you any clarity, but I know what it is when he's talking about seeing the Earth bending from 120,000 feet. He's talking about the horizon, the claimed and reified edge of the sphere. Well, the horizon isn't the edge of a sphere, but he's saying that you'll see that horizon bending at 120,000 feet. Well, the horizon's not the edge of his reified model. But that's what he means. In reality, from ground level and from the moment you ascend, if we lived on a spherical surface, the ground beneath you would fall away at a greater rate as you ascend. That's just a fact. It doesn't happen because the Earth is flat, and you don't notice any effects of anything falling away from you ever. You do, however, observe perspective, and that's all. Atmospheric conditions will alter your view and shorten the distance you can see. But that's pretty much it.
When I mentioned looming, what the point I was trying to make is that they try and claim looming as seeing something it's not and a proof for their curve. But when you look at what looming really is, it actually just proves that it's flat. It doesn't prove a curve. It proves the opposite. That's why they can never show you looming. They can never show it to you because real looming doesn't prove a curve. It proves flat if you look at what real looming is. But they try and assert looming, and then they go into super looming and whatever other nonsense. But they try and hold on to that. But real looming, if you look at examples of real looming, like for instance, a car driving along a highway, and it looks like the car in the distance is floating, but it's not. It's just the road looks like it's after disappearing underneath the car, but it's not. The car is not floating. The road is still there. And the same happens at sea, where it looks like there's a boat floating, but it isn't floating. It is floating, but it looks like it's floating in the air, not on the water. It looks like the water has disappeared underneath. That's what looming is. And it's either that or it's a completely inverted thing where you have like a ship where it's upside down. You can have a ship upside down. So you have like an image in the air, but it's upside down. It's actually in one of Ranty's. Ranty actually captured it brilliantly in one of his observations. I don't know if he knows it or not, but they try and claim looming, but looming is not what they say it is.
Correct.
Well,
But I just want to I'll just reiterate it one more time. I'm sorry, whoever's talking. They don't have looming. They say looming or super looming or slightly looming or whatever they claim, but looming is an actual atmospheric effect. They're not going to be applying actual atmospheric effects. They're applying very specifically terrestrial refraction. Now, they might change the numbers and then decide that they're going to arbitrarily assign the change of the number to super looming or slightly looming. But it doesn't mean that what they're actually applying, albeit a description of something that does occur in the atmosphere, is what they apply. They apply terrestrial refraction. So as soon as they say looming, no, that's an atmospheric effect. That's not been accounted for. You've not gone out and taken measurements of this atmosphere and proven that it is actually the thing you say. And the reason you can make that assertion is because when they claim looming, they're not showing what Ranty Flat Earth shows. He's showing distorted, crazy effects that are being messed up by the atmosphere. And, like you say, floating cars, floating boats in the middle of the air when the ocean's a couple of inches below them in the shot. Well, obviously, that's not what's occurring in reality. It's a very distorted view of the world. But when they say looming, you've got a perfectly normal picture. You've got a picture of the Chicago skyline with details. And they'll say, oh, yeah, that's looming. Well, no, it's not a distorted image of the world. And when you say looming, you mean I'm projecting that up from behind the Earth that's been reified as a sphere from behind the reified horizon called my Earth curve at a rate of light bending around that presupposition of the Earth bending to bring it back into view in perfect symmetry without any distorted effects at all. And suddenly that's looming. Oh, no, that isn't. You've got to prove it's actually doing the atmospheric effect. But they don't. They apply 7/6R. That's the point. R being the assumption of Earth being a sphere, the very thing they're trying to prove.
It's super mega looming, or the ultra super mega looming.
Yeah, a slightly different mathematical value than 7/6R, but it will absolutely be utilising that R value, presupposing Earth is a sphere and presupposing light is bending around that sphere at the rate of the sphere.
A
I
clock
listened
at
to... Go on, sorry, Matt.
a clock at 20 miles. I just see a clock at 20 miles.
Well, we got 5 ballers in here. Maybe you have a different opinion.
I listened to Rumpus a few weeks ago. You know this thing he was going to come out with, his big presentation on Looming? It was going on since, I think, about the 300th episode or something of the Flat Earth debates. This thing, he's always had 99% done.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. I heard him speaking about that there recently. I think it was a few weeks ago on Jose's. I don't listen to Jose's now, but it was a few weeks ago on Jose's, I think it was. And he was basically saying, this is basically what he said. I can't remember the episode, so I can't refer you to it. That it'll always look flat, but that's only because it's curved, because it's always looming. He has 800 pages done. This is what he has 800 pages of thing on.
I want to reiterate that. Very good point. That's correct. So occasionally people, with the clock example, will say, no, it's only the bottom being obscured and the rest of it's visible. Incorrect. Standard refraction is the alternative name for terrestrial refraction. Standard, meaning that when we figured this out with Chris Monk, everything in their model is all looming, always. So nothing is where it's supposed to be. It's all got slightly different effects of 7/6R, bringing it back from slightly different distances, with slightly more, obviously, if it's further, 7/6R being applied to it. So nothing in their model is where it's supposed to be. It's all looming. Now, when that penny dropped, I'm sure Anthony will back me on this, he was there, it was a bit of a revelation, because we're trying to match it up and compare actual straight lines, i.e. here's your point of view, here's your target, draw a straight line between the two and measure where it's supposed to be. And what we're doing when we're having to compare it to their model is rearrange everything in the model to match up with standard refraction. And at one point Chris Monk said it in those words, no, nothing on their model's where it's supposed to be. It's all looming. So yeah, absolutely correct, Brian. That's used for him as a defence. For me, it was a revelation that their model is all holograms. Everything.
Yeah.
Right. We're supposed to live on a globe that looks like a perfectly flat plane.
Yeah.
And that is the norm. That is
all they do. I remember when me and Nathan were discussing the merits of how they're just going to add more refraction. And Nathan described it as, don't worry about how they mathematically represent it. It's just sliding the bullshit scale up. Don't look at it as a mathematical representation. Just look at it as add more bullshit to the bullshit they've already presented. And that's what it is. They're just adding more bullshit to the bullshit because it's more and more refraction each time.
It's more and more refraction. Well, no, more and more terrestrial refraction. But yes, more accurately, getting excited, more and more R. We just need a bit more R to make this a bit more flat. So we need to flatten it back out again with terrestrial refraction. In other words, bring it back into your line of view because have the whole thing bent round the curve. Well, when it's too far bent round the curve, i.e. you can't see it or you can see it too much or too little, you can just slide that bullshit of how much R you're going to add. It's 7/6R you're adding when you move your bullshit slider of how much refraction, no, not refraction, how much 7/6R, more than or less than, are you applying? So in other words, we just need a bit more R.
Yeah.
On I think it could have been the same show I was listening to a few weeks ago, Jose show. Ranty came on because his name was mentioned by Miles Davis. Miles Davis was saying about how he had debunked Ranty's 1 foot observation. Now, right, this is what he was saying. But then Ranty came on and Miles Davis didn't stay. I have to go. He didn't stay on too long. But he was trying to argue with Ranty. And I looked at Ranty's 1 foot observation, the video, and he sent me stills of it. And it's going into a presentation I have on the way up. And there's 1 foot off the water. He's seen buildings 18 miles away. And before he hits the buildings at 13 miles, there is a 35-foot high sand dune. And I don't know, I can't remember what Miles Davis was saying. There was some nonsense, how he debunked it or whatever. But they were all dismissing this. And Ranty came in and Ranty kept calm, but Ranty eventually had to go off and have a cigarette or something like that because they were really stressing him out. And I looked at the thing, and there's actually a mirage. I think it could be what they call one of the versions of Looming, right? Of actual Looming that's going on in his 1 foot observation. And it's actually an inversion of the buildings of Barrow Town Hall and them. It's actually an inversion of them above that. There's a whole inversion above that happening. So how could a mirage, which is what they have to make that be, how could a loomed up mirage create another mirage?
Perfect. Well said. Let me answer you. It can't.
Yeah.
And we had, I believe he was a physics student or a graduate. He might have been called Phil. This is going back nearly 1,000 shows. But Anthony put precisely that question to him. The guy came on, he'd modelled it out, and Anthony asked him, this was actually not with Ranties, it was with the Isle of Man. But Anthony asked him, how is it that you have an inferior mirage running the length of the picture? How would the island be capable of being loomed up, an atmospheric effect, but the increased distance of the south end of the island being loomed up with an identical mirage running the length of the photograph? How is that even possible? Because essentially it's saying that the mirage itself is loomed up. Completely insane. But that's essentially what we reached in the point where they're still modelling it. This is before we figured out that they're just begging the question anyway. But we're arguing within the fallacy. And Anthony's like, well, how are you going to model that? How do you model a mirage at the bottom of the land coming around the curve at greater and greater and greater distances? So it's essentially miraging up a mirage from further and further beyond the curve in perfect symmetry along the length of the picture. You know, obviously it's bloody optical effect. You know, that's the point of, that's the diffraction limit. Perfectly along the horizon, obviously. But to them, no, we just can't justify, we can't explain or model how a mirage is being miraged up. Because it's preposterous. But you're right.
Remember what his answer?
His answer was, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't model that. No, you can't, because it's not reality.
Wasn't that Phil?
I thought his guy was called Phil. He was definitely a very educated, academically at least, man.
I think he was doing a master's in physics at the time.
Something like that. My memory's not that terrible, but I vaguely remember him being called Phil. I vaguely remember him being a very nice chap and very honest, and showing us his model that he'd worked extremely hard on for several months. And it boiled down to that question from Sleeping Warrior. How is it that you've got a mirage miraging up? How are you going to model that? And he said, yeah, that did trouble me. I can't.
Can I read something, Nathan, that relates? I'm on the astronomy podcast site, and the guy puts down in script what he was saying on the live show as a possible reason for geocentrism is that it was easy and it fit the basic observations and everyday experience. First off, as I sit here at my desk recording this episode, it does not feel as though I am moving at all. It seems like I'm stationary. And yet, when I look outside, I can easily tell that the sun has moved over the last hour. And at night, I can clearly tell the stars also move over the course of an hour or so. These two very basic observations would lead anyone who doesn't have any other information and who's assuming the most simple explanation to think the Earth is stationary and the rest of the universe revolves around it. The obvious is there, but he's got to go make it fit his model. So it can't be the obvious, simple explanation.
Yeah, so it's our version of saying clock at 20 miles and them saying, no, standard refraction, super looming, blah, blah, blah. But I find it interesting that they can think at that level of complexity to explain their bullshit narrative, and they reject the more simpler obviousness of our explanation, which is it's just there. But when it comes to us explaining something relatively complex, like a 2 or 3 stage explanation, like, for example, but not limited to, relative density, where you've got two objects of different densities or similar but different densities, and we can manipulate the density of the medium to make the object move without applying gravity or de-applying gravity or any of that nonsense, the cause being the manipulation of the gradient that the thing's in, the medium that the thing's in. They can't get their head around that complex level of explanation by us. It's not that difficult, but they don't seem to manage to understand it. But they all seem to understand the intricacies and the nuances to do with super looming and towering and all this refractive nonsense that nobody understands. Let's be honest, all these grey, curvy and bendy lines that are all makes no sense on a globe at all, because you're behind the curve. But they seem to understand it when it's in their favor. They play dumb when it's against them.
That's why it could never fit the scientific method, because they have to make everything up to fit their made-up model. So they go to the bending of space-time. Well, how in the world are you ever going to prove that?
Yeah. In their world, science doesn't prove anything, because the science they follow it's not possible to prove any of it. You know, it's all overcomplicated nonsense, and there's no way of proving it. It's, you know,
Brian, that reminds me of the rumpus. You know who the rumpus is, Brian?
Yeah.
There was a time when his favorite phrase was the whole body of science. So when you'd ask him a question, the general answer that you'd get back would be the whole body of science, Nathan. And we used to take the mick out of him, because the whole body of science, there isn't a whole body of science. But he used this phrase to describe the confidence that he had in his answers that they were true. So me and Nathan used to mock him all the time because there is no actual body of science and he's citing it. But when you're describing it like that, it reminds me of the rumpus when he'd cite this fiction that is the whole body of science, and when you actually scratch below the surface, there isn't any science for their model. It's all about the window.
Yeah, it's nonsense. Consensus. It's only consensus. Sorry, it's just consensus. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly. When you ask them for the hypothesis, hang on, let me look for it. Well, it's consensus. Consensus is not hypothesis.
Yeah, if you go into a rhetoric hangout, right, there'll be like 3 or 4 of them in the background, and you believe that you're dealing with just one dude, right, who's very intelligent, whoever it might be. It might be Sean, Reds, whoever. But they've got 5 or 6 people that are ready to jump on anything that you say and then find counter arguments to it, so that it looks like the guy that you're talking against is very intelligent. But in real world, he's got cronies behind the scene working so that all he's got to do is create a little bit of delay, and then he can come back on topic. But when you realize that really the common MO in like the likes of Jose's chats is where they'll get 3 or 4 people and they'll all say that blue is actually red. And if 3 or 4 people say that blue is actually red, and in our case it would be that's not, we would say that's a container, you've got gas pressure in it, and they say no, that's not a container, it's not sealed at the top. If 4 people on their side say yeah, that's not a container, the audience somehow seem to accept that that's not a container, and we've been debunked. And because there's 4 of them that are saying it, not because it's true, but because there's 4 saying it, and that's what we're up against.
Exactly. I found out when I went into Jose's, when I did go in there a few times, I instantly started getting, I got kind of irate, because it was a case of, it was consensus. They were fighting consensus. And when things started going against them, when you had arguments that they didn't like or they couldn't deal with on the spot, the whole thing was to try and stop you, slow you down, get in your way, change the subject. And then if all came to all, Jose helped them. You know, that kind of way. And if I'm kind of like, if I'm debating, I'm like kind of be jumping on everything that they say that might be wrong. And then Jose would be turning on me for that, saying, oh, you're not leaving them speak. But if they're just going, leaving them speak means you have to sit there and listen to a lot of monologue. And after 5 minutes of monologue, it's like watching like a soap on TV, like, or something. It's just like, I'm bored after 5 minutes of listening to it. You kind of, it takes the wind out of you listening to all that monologue. And that's all it is a monologue. It's not going to win. It's not doing anything.
Yeah, they're just trying to distract you and take you off guard. They do it all the time, though. And the audience are happy to sit there and accept it as an acceptable tactic. And we're like, hang on, let's stay on topic and let's answer the question. How do you have gas pressure without a container? No. Let's talk about something else while we forget about the point that's been made and we argue about something else that's within the question. Like, Highlander does it all the time. If you ask Highlander, how do you have gas pressure without a container? He'll come back with, yeah, mom's a slag or something stupid like that. And we're like, come on. Answer the question. But the problem is they can't answer the question. And we all know why.
When have I
But they
ever
just won't
said
get
your
it.
mum was a slag? Huh?
Yeah, that is what you
it's
do,
not
though, isn't
When
it?
have
You
I
can't
ever
answer.
said that
You
to
got
you?
4 or 5 other ballers in here.
Guys in
Come
the
on.
hangout, can you
Shut
put
up,
yourselves on
Highlander.
mute if you're not talking? If you're talking in the conversation, mute between conversations. All I can hear is click, click, click. Same goes for you in
But
Discord.
he just said that if he asks me that question, I come back with your mum's a slag. When have I ever said that to him?
You said that a couple of days ago. I've
No,
asked you over
I've
and over
never said
again.
that to you.
How do you have gas pressure without a container?
Right. So when did I ever reply with your mum's a slag? When did I ever
Where
say that?
to the effect of? You said something about my mum, and I was like, answer the question. Do you not remember? Do you
No,
really
it
want me
was
to go back and
you
find it and
said
play it back to you?
something about my mum. Yeah. After I was muted, you were the one that
I
said
didn't. I
my
never
mum
mentioned
was
your
a
mum. I
whore.
never mentioned people's mothers. Answer. See, look, you're doing it right now. Answer the.
Do
I'm
the
not asking
same
about the
thing
insult.
again.
I'm not asked
You're
about the
doing the
insult. I
same
want to
thing
know how
again.
you have gas pressure without a container.
Answer the question.
I don't care about the question. Yeah?
Yeah.
He's the one claiming that I come out with your mum's a fucking hole. Yeah.
How do you
never
have gas
said that.
pressure without a container?
Let's try it a different way. So, yesterday or the day before yesterday, Highlander, I was detailing something quite complex. It was coincidentally gas pressure without a container. And your rebuttal when describing something complex, second law of thermodynamics, how entropy would apply to open systems like your pipe, your response was to tell me that there's a vacuum between my ears.
Yeah.
Right. So what's that got to do with calling people's mum a hole? I've never
Same
said that.
concept.
How do you
Same
have gas pressure without a container? How do you have gas pressure without a container?
Broke the silence, John. It was beautiful.
But the point here is that if we're talking about whether or not someone slagged off someone else's mom, or whether or not a coffee cup will stay warm, they've got plenty to talk about. But when we ask them about the nature of our reality, and the fact that it's claimed the sky is a vacuum, but entropy would disperse the gas we breathe into that space, there's nothing but silence.
So let's try it again for a third, fourth, fifth time. How do you have gas pressure without a container, Highlander? Please.
The only thing
Come
I
on,
can...
gents. You're just going to get silence out of this guy. We got more ballers in here. We got a full Discord. So we got no new ballers that can come in.
I don't mind their answer being the same as Danny Faulkner's.
Well, Nathan, we're back
It'd be
to
great to hear it, though.
our conversation before. Please show us a single viable scientific hypothesis for any of your claims.
Well done for everybody that enjoyed the silence. Then that pregnant pause was beautiful. I'd rather have an answer off him. I'd like to hear an actual answer off him, even if he says I don't know. I'd rather have an answer because he's been asked it for a week now and he's still not answered. He keeps like avoiding the answer. Can we have an answer off you, even if it's I don't know?
Yeah, has anybody ever gotten an intelligent response out of Highlander for anything? Honest question, please.
Yeah, Highlander's a pretty reasonable guy, apart from when it comes to his religious belief about Earth being a sphere. We've had plenty of conversations. He's been on the pre-show. He's a nice guy. I actually quite like him.
Yeah, I've heard him plenty of times, but when somebody asks him a serious question, I don't get anything substantial out of the guy.
That's because his side of the argument doesn't give him a hypothesis to defend his argument. He can't find one either.
Yeah, it's not really his fault he can't back up his belief.
I was just about to say the same thing. We're of like mind, Brian. I was going to say the same thing. That's not really his fault, is it? That's just his religion. Blame the religion, not the man.
No, blame the man.
Right. Well, he's sitting here like a bump on a log, right? There's only 17 places in this Discord. So it's for people who are supposed to be taking part in the debate. There's always messages in the chat about that.
Are you a mod, Travis? Kick him out. Feel free.
No, I'm not a mod. No. I'm just a loyal fan, sir.
I just like pointing out that Highlander doesn't like, for some reason, he takes an aversion to that question and would rather add hom instead. I just want the audience to be aware that that seems to be an acceptable process for a Highlander, and I don't understand why. At least say, I don't know, if you don't know the answer.
People add hom because they don't have a viable hypothesis to defend the point they're making. They have to add hom.
Well, it's the same thing with Akuma virus, aka the blind sniper. This guy just comes in here every day and sits in here and doesn't say a damn thing. It's bullshit, dude. Come off mute, Akuma.
I like it.
The
tables have turned to the silent globers getting hostility from the flat earthers for not arguing their bullshit. Oh my, how times have changed. Go and check out like any number below 50 of the debates and see how how this is the total antithesis of how it started. Great.
Just think back to the days when we had to like be nice to these guys because we didn't know all the angles, and now it's like they just can't even come in. They won't come in. They claim protest, right? But the reality is they realize that they can't come in and preach their nonsense because we know how to stop it now, and they have to pretend that they're on protest because, well, they can't come in and beat us with any science. They can't prove what the cause of sunrise and sunset is. They tell us it's the Earth tipping backwards, but we all know that the Earth's not tipping backwards to cause the sunrise and sunset. The sun's going down. We're not tipping backwards. But they tell people that, and they want to come in and preach their churchhood to anybody that's happy to listen, and they can't do it here. Why do you think Jose's chat exists?
So
I'd have to say.
Go on, Brian. No, go ahead.
I'll just say about Highlander. In the end of the day, Highlander, I listen to the show all the time. I'm not always on the panel, but I listen to the show all the time. And Highlander is nearly always in there. This is the hardest station for someone who is a baller. There's nowhere in the world that someone who is a baller could be that would be more difficult to defend your ball than in this show. But Highlander is there. All these other people, Danny Faulkner, all these other Big Blue, all these Blue Marvel Science, all these people, they're not in there. They don't come in. They don't ever come in. They're too busy looking after their egos and their nonsense. Highlander, at least he's in there trying.
Actually,
it's almost as if they got like two.
Hold on 1 second, Sleeping Warrior. Go ahead. I think that was Babs. Not Babs. Was it Babs?
It's Babs. I'm in here with a stock account, but it's showing up as Babs on your main page. But yeah, what I was going to say is that what a lot of these ballers do, what I've noticed is that they have like roundtable meetings on a regular basis where they discuss different tactics that they can use to combat some of the arguments that we come up with. And I've also noticed that a lot of flat earthers try and debate these people, and not to be offensive, but a lot of flat earthers aren't really that knowledgeable in like math or physics, and regular people aren't, because it's not really like a requirement if you're looking for employment. But these guys, the Globers that we're dealing with, are experts in math and physics. So they always look for easy targets that they can take apart. And
hold on 1 second, Sleeping Warrior.
Go ahead, repeat that again?
You're nearly done. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they always look for easy targets that they can pummel with math and physics. And I recently saw this video of this guy that had a debate with conspiracy cats, and now he's turned into a Glober just because he wasn't able to win that debate. And what I'd suggest to most flat earthers is you shouldn't be debating with these people or going into debates if you don't know what their strategies are. Their strategies are, they're always going to use a straw man against you. And if you can't provide that, they're going to force you to provide a straw man that they can attack. That's why they're always asking you for a model of flat Earth or if you don't have one, they're going to default back to the AE map just because they need a straw man to attack. And they've been practicing strategies in regards to like these different models that were implemented in the past, and they've mastered rebuttals to make against people that are going to try and debate them about, you know, those specific models. So the reason they don't come here is because they can't answer any of the housekeeping questions, and they hate being asked about the housekeeping questions just because they know that, you know, this is where the cutting edge like arguments happen. Like this is where like the most intelligent flat earthers are. So they're never going to come here. They're only going to look for easy targets. They're only going to look for people they can humiliate and make look ridiculous.
Let me just pick you up on something you said.
Go ahead,
Let me
go
just
ahead,
pick you
Stephen
up on
Moore.
something you said. You said that a lot of flat earthers don't tend to know about physics or maths. And you said it as though, I know you didn't mean it the way that I'm going to say it, but you said it as though it was an unacceptable position. I'm going to remind people that you don't need to know about physics or maths to know what's going on here. You need to know scientific method because you need to know what the cause and effect relationship is. The physics, yeah, it helps if you understand some of the physics, but you don't need to know the physics. All you've got to say is what's causing that, and then basically make them prove it. So one of the key questions is what causes sunrise, what causes sunset on their model, and they say it's Earth turn. Well, that Earth turn is what they've got to demonstrate is causing sunrise and sunset. Well, we know the rise and the cause of sunrise and sunset isn't Earth turn. That doesn't mean we need to know what it is. But what we point out is that they can't prove that the Earth's turning or tipping backwards to prove that the sunrise is caused by Earth tipping backwards. Because if they can't prove it, then who cares what's causing it? So it's not really, for me, it's not really about the physics or the maths. What it is about is, can you prove the claims that you make, which is the heliocentric model? Can you prove that we're moving? Can you prove that we're tipping backwards? Can you prove that we're orbiting anything? Can you prove that we've got a molten iron core? It's housekeeping questions. Can they prove the claims that they make? It's not, if you know scientific method, you can pull apart all of their arguments. But what they do is they say 6 of you, if there's 5 or 6 of them, and they all say, nah, that's not the answer, and they ridicule it, that's gaslighting. You will think that you've got it wrong, or that you didn't quite have the right citation, or you misspoke, or whatever. But actually, you don't realize that you've actually got the strongest argument.
Correct.
But they're telling you that it's a weak argument, and you accept it because you're not in the majority rule. It's 6 against 1. And that's why you just got to realize that we're being gaslit all the time.
I just want to just a couple of things.
They could always fall back.
I'll let you respond, Babs. I'm really sorry. There's just 3 things that are piling up now. So number 1, I want QE, when he's got the inclination to do so, to hopefully point out in support of what Babs has said about lumberjacks and chainsaws. I'm sure he'll know what I'm talking about. So that's the first thing. The second thing, Anthony, we were going to discuss something on the pre-show in terms of a concession you got in terms of needing a container. I don't want that to slip by before the end of the show. Hello, Ranty Flat Earth. And I also want to shout out some super chats. But I don't want Babs to not get an opportunity to respond. So Babs, go ahead. I'm sorry I cut you off.
It's no problem. I was just going to tell Anthony that they could always fall back on telling you that you don't understand physics and math. You could say that you don't need it to make your argument, but they're going to use that as the basis of why you're not understanding the information that they're presenting you with, just because you don't have a basic understanding of math or physics.
Yeah, I understand that. I've had that all the time. Rumpus says that all the time, and I just laugh when he says it now because it's a non sequitur argument. We're asking for the cause of sunrise and sunset, and they come up with maths. Well, maths isn't the cause of sunrise and sunset. We want to see what's causing it. And obviously, we can't manipulate Earth turn. So once you realize that all of the claims that they tell us, none of them they can prove in the scientific method, then they haven't got any science behind them. They've just got stories, maths, models, whatever it is. But I mean, let's be honest, it's not difficult to calculate something that you see and explain it with numbers. And that's what Einstein's done with gravity. We see something, we believe there's a force there. He calculates it using mathematics to demonstrate it, but isn't demonstrating cause and effect. He's not demonstrating that there's a force there or that there's bendy space-time there. He's just calculating it. Well, I don't need to be a mathematician to know that that's not proof. So just be cautious when they rely heavily on maths and criticize you for not understanding maths, or because we want to see the proof. And proof's not found in maths. proofs found in science, and that involves manipulating the independent variable. They hate that. The independent variable kills their model over and over and over again.
Right, I'm going to do some shout-outs. So, shout-out to Isam Halsky, who says, FE is the Donald Trump of cosmology, and 600 miles are navigated as flat. Sup, Nathan? Yeah, what's up, Isa? Good to see you. Thanks for the super chat. Rolly and crew. I think that means you. Shout out also to Julio Pabon, who says, destroy the globe, keep it up, guys. He also says, in a separate super chat, so thank you very much for both the super chats, Julio Pabon, Elon Musk presented Tesla's new pickup truck. After showing it off a bit, he tells the audience, quote, this is the actual truck. It's not CGI, end quote. Interesting, don't you think? Thank you very much indeed for the super chat and your remarks, Julio. Very, very interesting indeed. Also, shout out to John Blatch, who just sends me money. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate the support. And last but by no means least, Dave Rakia Gafford. Crickets and pass. Love it. Answer to all the tough Qs. Rakia life. Thank you very much indeed all for all of your super chats. Thank you very much indeed for your support. So, QE. There's a danger, as pointed out by Babs, that people will come here, which is why I've labelled today's show Earth Curvature, as we spent the first half an hour of the show, maybe a little bit less, discussing amongst ourselves the housekeeping question that is any signs of Earth curvature. My intention being tomorrow's show will also do the same, but with axial rotation, and hopefully we'll spend the first half of the show discussing it, or first quarter of the show, whatever. Anyway, in light of that, I just want to point out that we will eventually do some short 10-minute shows that are condensed versions of these discussions and more concise. But secondly, re-stress what Bab said about people going out there when they don't necessarily have all the angles covered. And this is physics. I hate to piss on your bonfires. We're talking about the physical. Maybe arguable when you talked about the sun, but nevertheless, until that point, we are talking physics here. This establishment of cause and effect in physical reality, the physical and natural world, this is physics. Anyway, QE, can you give your words of warning to anybody who might be in the position that debater a few weeks ago was in when he said he was going to debate an astrophysicist, and we said don't, basically?
Thank you for pointing out that physics at its base is the scientific method. Thank you for that. Second, you got the champion of science, the retard rumpus, who says the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth. But why are you even talking to him anymore? Air is not the atmosphere. Why do you even entertain him? Number three, you're correct. And I warned about this long time ago, that the problem with the flat Earth is flat earthers, right? Most of the flat earthers don't know what they're doing. They haven't done their homework. They come out here probably with good intent, but the intent backfires when they come up against retards. They can't even defeat retard arguments. So they need to sit back. They need to listen. They need to do their homework. It's just as simple as that. If you haven't done your homework, then don't come out here. Don't open up your mouth, because every time you do, you're representing other flat earthers, right? That's all.
So just to offer a little bit of empathy to our friend Highlander, my position at the start of these debates was his position now later on in these debates. I.e., I didn't have very many answers, so I would sit not answering in stony silence when asked a troubling question, rather than humiliating myself with an incorrect answer. So, if you ignore slips of the tongue in terms of mathematical foibles I've made, or claim to be proofs of globe taken by globe protagonists during debates about lighthouses, if you exclude these very reaching claim to be globe proofs, there's very little that you can actually put your fingers on, because like Highlander and Dr. Daniel Faulkner, sometimes the best thing to say is nothing. And that's a very wise position to take in most instances. Now, unfortunately for Danny Faulkner, his pride got the better of him, and he posted a citation that was hillbilly blue balls gas pressure without a container, in reality a transfer of pressure from one container to another. Highly embarrassing if you're a PhD priest in the subject. Pride.
Can I just also point out though that if you got if you're brave enough to go onto the debate scene and or even just have conversations with people, some of the best arguments have come from a fall first. I mean, I don't get everything right. I make mistakes. Everyone knows I make mistakes. We all make mistakes because in the heat of the moment, when you're making a video or when you've got someone and you think they're on the rocks, and then we make mistakes, right? Notice the difference between when we make a mistake once compared to them completely lying continuously over and over and over again. We make one mistake, right, and it gets remembered forever. All of their mistakes get completely forgotten about, conveniently, always, by everybody. But if you misspeak once or you get one sum wrong or whatever, that gets tagged on you for the rest of your time here, and they use that against you as some kind of, you're a retard because you couldn't do 2 + 2. Yet they do everything wrong themselves, and everyone completely forgets about it. So don't forget about the fact that we can only make 1 or 2 mistakes before we end up having to make a massive uphill battle, right? But they make mistakes over and over and over again. Look at Rumpus; he makes more mistakes than anybody, but nobody ever challenges him on it. Look at Hillbilly Blue Balls. None of the ballers are challenging in why this gas pressure without a container video is still up. He's got a big, massive container in it. They're all turning a blind eye. And it's like you're not dealing with honest people. You're dealing with completely dishonest people. But you slip up once, and that'll be your cards marked for a good 6 days. Well, they'll remember it. And if it keeps coming up and up and up and up and up, you're going to have to put up with it. But they can make as many mistakes as they want, and they can lie to your teeth, and they can distract with obfuscation tactics about how your mum's a whore and this, that, and the other. And it's all forgotten about on their side because it's a completely uneven keel. But you can't make any mistakes on your side. So just
the ballers are incapable of doing anything wrong. Like when George tried to get Brian fired, nobody chastised him for that on the baller side. When Greater Sapien stole people's money and never went on that trip, nobody said anything. So they can pretty much do anything they want.
Yeah. But if you do anything, that even if you haven't done it, they'll just make up the bits for yourself. I mean, look at me, right? My dog's ill as heck at the minute, and I'm trying to do anything
because we haven't got we're limited for time on this live show, and I want you to talk about the concession you got in terms of containment.
Okay. So I had a conversation with some ballers on this new Facebook group that I've joined, right? It's a private group, and I don't know how he even got in there, but Danny Faulkner's in there. So I wanted to go in and just basically challenge him on his words. But I got a baller he said to me, he says, right, he says, all right, he says, we'll admit that you need a container for gas pressure if you can explain the gradient. And I'm like, I can explain the gradient, but I don't need to because we need to have the gas pressure dealing with before we start discussing the gradient. He said, no, but we're prepared to concede that, but you need to explain how there is a gradient. And I said, okay. I said, that seems reasonable. I said, I'll give you the answers. We've got numerous cycles that the sun causes, the gas cycles. So it's the hydrological cycle. We've got the nitrogen cycle. We've got a few cycles. You can go to Wikipedia and look them up. There's about 9. I said, and that's the explanation. We're in a dynamic system where gases are all created at ground level and they're listed. There's loads of them. And they said, have you actually looked at this? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, what are you getting at? You're talking as though there's a gotcha here. What are you getting at? And he says, well, just quantify it in terms of like, does it account for the constitution of the atmosphere? So I goes away and I has a little look and I realize there's a bit of an issue on both sides here because I found some information that doesn't work on either model. So I rings a couple of friends to ask them what's their opinion on this and do they have any views on this, because this is a problem for both models. And the first one was Dr. John D, because I know what he does for a living and I know he's he's an intelligent guy. And I said, John, I said, this is the position. I said, I've come across this challenge and I'm looking into it. And it appears that there's a bit of a problem for both models. I said, what do you know about it? And he burst out laughing. And he said, listen, he said, that is one of the key fundamental problems in the whole model thing of this heliocentrism evolution argument thing. He said, this is a big problem. And there is no answer to this particular problem. So I rings Quantum Eraser and I says, John, what's the situation with this? I said, it seems that this might be an issue. And John goes, yeah, that's not the biggest issue. He said, there's a bigger one than that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then he comes back with a question that I'd never even thought about asking in all the time I've been in Flat Earth. And it dawns on me that this is probably the biggest question. So I don't really know where Nathan wants to lead this. And I'm going to invite Nathan to pick the reins up and lead it where he wants it to go. Because I don't know where he wants me to take this and how much he wants me to say. But Nathan, do you want to take over?
Well, I was going to see where it went because QE's here now. And based on the fact that Quantum Eraser's on the panel, he might just want to re-stress his question or reiterate the bigger problem. Fortunately, we've got enough time to do that. So,
okay. So
or not.
The question,
he might not.
Are you talking about me or John?
Quantum Eraser, you've detailed a question that left you with a ponderance, but the ponderance was based on the question Quantum Eraser asked, and you're asking me if I want to take this further than it's at. Well, the bit I want to get on this show, so you know what I'm trying to achieve, is the fact that at some point there's a concession made in regards to gas pressure without a container. Now, Anthony also asked my opinion, and the subsequent questions in regards to mould and its production of nitrogen or whatever. I was like, this is all inconsequential. At some point, Quantum Eraser was reluctant, nay defiant, when it came to the answer of how we have a gas pressure gradient, delta X, because the focus is on how we have a gas pressure in the first place if the sky is a vacuum. Upon concession of a container, you've won. Who gives a crap? That puts hold on. That puts them in the same boat as me. Oh, so you've got some questions now, have you? Well, isn't that nice? Me too. Well, that means you're on my side now. Not just going to sit here and demand that I give you bloody answers to questions you've now got, because I've got them too. And why have I got them? Well, because the sky's not a vacuum. You appreciate that we need a container to have gas pressure. So we have gas pressure, and therefore we've got a container. The sky is not a vacuum. Do you think I give two shits that you don't understand where nitrogen comes from? Like I care! We've been lied to on a monumental scale. So you appreciate that now, do you, Fundy, who's asking me where nitrogen comes from in the proportions you've detailed? Because that's now troubling. Oh, well, I don't care. Sky's not a vacuum.
Because the audience are not going to know what we're referring to, right? The issue is to do with the constitution of the atmosphere. We can explain where the oxygen comes from. It comes from the hydrological cycle. We can explain where some of the nitrogen comes from. It comes from the nitrogen cycle. But the quantity of oxygen coming from the surface water evaporation of the hydrological cycle is disproportionately huge relative to the amount of nitrogen that's created of the bacteria in the nitrogen cycle. Given that nitrogen is 70% of the atmosphere and oxygen is like 30%, yeah, you can account for the 30% of the oxygen, but where's the nitrogen from? And I didn't know. So I started to look into it, and they say it comes from like comet. They say, well, I don't know where the nitrogen comes from, but I started asking questions for where the nitrogen came from, and there is no answer. So if they don't know where the nitrogen's come from, we need an explanation, just out of curiosity's sake. So when I asked John said to me, he said, that's not the biggest question. And I was like, well, what's bigger than the nitrogen and the oxygen in the atmosphere?
Wait, do you want to ask that question, Quantum Eraser?
Say again.
Do you want to ask the question that preceded this discussion?
What question?
You said there's a bigger problem, not where the extra nitrogen comes from, but where a different material, substance came from. I can't hint any more than that without giving it away. I'm just asking you if you want to actually ask this rather important question, or do you want me to round out the live show?
I didn't ask a question. The subject was brought up to me. I snickered because my first response was, it's over. Once they concede that you need a container for gas pressure, it's over. The rest is barely, palpable background noise. I started laughing to myself. And then the second one, yeah. What? Say again? Somebody was interrupting?
No, it's you. Feedback.
Just an audio issue. Go ahead.
Audio issues, for crying out loud. Like I said, it's over, right? As soon as you concede that you need a container for gas pressure, like we all know, like every incoherent second grader knows, it's over. Once you ask the question about gas pressure gradients, I already gave you the answer to those. It's all the cycles. Anthony said there were 9. Yeah, somewhere in that vicinity, right? Now, if you want to get down into the weeds, then the question is, where did the initial conditions or concentrations come first, right? The initial conditions and the concentrations were set by the creator.
Yeah, that's not the point I was going to. Let me just interrupt. The question you came back with was, where did the oceans come from in the first place? Now, I'd never even considered it because it was just a given that they were just like, for me, it was like there must be an explanation by science. But try and find out, if you're a flat earther, right, Have a research around and see what you can find. Where did the nitrogen? Where did the nitrogen in the atmosphere come from? Given that it's 70% of the atmosphere, right? And then when you've considered that, when you've worked out that there is no explanation in science, then look at the question, well, where did the oceans come from? And you'll realize again that there is no explanation in science. They don't know where it come from. But they say that they believe that the oceans came from satellites and comets and meteorites, and all, not satellites, comets and meteorites. Now, if space is a fake medium and you can't have gas pressure next to the vacuum of space without some kind of container. If space doesn't really exist, but they tell us that the oceans were formed by comets and meteorites and all this over the years, then that can't be true. So if space is fake and comets and meteorites are not true, then what's the explanation for where the bloody oceans have come from?
The answer to that question is they don't have one, because all of their rhetoric is based around a sky vacuum. And without the container, there can be no pressure. With that, I'm going to say, if you're watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 stream, then this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of today's Discord and G+ panel for making the live show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. As I say, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
There is 78% nitrogen in the air.
No, but I think it's a generally accepted fact. I might be wrong, but the point is, where did the nitrogen come from? Because science doesn't have an explanation for it. They believe it came from wherever, volcanic eruptions and all that. But I mean, come on, let's be honest. That's not plausible. I don't think that's plausible. But that's what they say.
You're slightly altering the original question, which is much more eloquent. So when you say, when you're saying where does it come from, I know that the way you're saying it is to ask an alternative of this description when you say it came from the sky on snowballs during the heavy bombardment or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, you told QE at the end, well, no, you didn't ask the question. Well, he did, because he was describing the fundamental origins. But his phraseology was to say, where did it come from? You're talking with different paradigms in your head. So, without being rude or cocky or kissing QE's arse, the answer I gave when you asked me this exact same question that you said you posed to QE and Dr. John D was the answer QE gave you, which is, who cares? So you got a concession that you need a container then. Yeah, at that point, all space is fake. All bets are off. Who cares where they say it came from?
I don't believe any physicist can accede to that claim that you have that gas pressure needs a container, unless they're talking about in a lab. You probably ask them, what do you need in a lab to get a gas pressure? And they said, you need a container. You didn't mention to them that you were talking about something that goes up the atmosphere, did you? I'll bet.
Shut up. Air is not the atmosphere, and the second law doesn't apply to the earth.
How can you not understand that, QE? How can you not understand? If I go to a beach and I grab some sand, is that the same as the beach?
Hey, the second law of thermodynamics applied to the earth?
Hold on, let's not get distracted. Let's do one thing at a time. Do you think if I go and got some sand off a beach, I've got the beach?
Does the second law of thermodynamics apply to the earth?
Let's deal with the sand thing first.
Does the second law of thermodynamics apply to
do I have the beach or do I have some sand?
Sorry, I'm not going to talk about sand
here. Does the second law of thermodynamics apply to the earth?
No, I didn't say that. I said the second law doesn't apply because it's got energy input. It's not an isolated system. You utter moron.
He's just said it again. He's just said that the second law doesn't apply. That's what he's just said. He's just.
Where was the second law discovered? Where was the second law discovered?
I mentioned entropy still applies, and that quote you've got me, I said entropy still applies, but the second law doesn't.
Entropy is the second law!
Into the system, you utter moron! How can you not understand this?
Yes.
Do you accept that the sun is inputting energy to the Earth?
I accept you're retarded.
Do you understand that the Earth is not an isolated system? and that
Yes,
it
I do.
gets energy from the sun. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do. I accept that you're an abject retard. Yes.
Do you understand that the sun is inputting energy to the
I
earth?
understand that you're an abject retard.
Do you understand that the sun
Yes,
is
I do.
inputting energy
I
to
accept
the
that.
earth?
You should too. Everyone else
understand
does besides you.
Understand that, and therefore you can't apply the second law of thermodynamics just to the earth. You have to include the sun. You utter
Does the sun increase or
moron.
decrease entropy?
I didn't hear that.
Does the sun increase or decrease entropy?
Itself, or the system, or the earth? Which one are you talking about?
Entropy.
Where, you twat? On the earth, the sun, or the combined system?
It's a
On
simple-
the earth!
He's asked the question.
Just the earth.
Does it increase entropy or decrease entropy? The sun, that is.
The sun. You're talking about the sun increasing the entropy of the earth. Is that the question?
I'll repeat the question. Can you not hold on?
Yeah, that's not a malformed question. Try asking an intelligent
I'm
question.
going to repeat the question.
Whether the sun
Sorry,
causes
Rumpus, I need you to be quiet for me to repeat the question.
Okay.
The question is, does the sun increase or decrease entropy?
Of what?
Of anything.
Well, it is it is increasing in entropy itself, but it can cause a decrease in entropy of the earth.
A decrease?
It can do, depends, because the earth actually becomes more ordered because of the energy input into it.
Give me an example.
That's why we have biological systems. We're more ordered, and the structures of the earth can require energy, and that can actually decrease entropy. But the overall system, following the second law of thermodynamics, increases entropy. But you don't understand this because you're a moron.
So a moment ago you said that it wasn't the second law of thermodynamics because it was entropy, even though the second law of thermodynamics is describing entropy. So that kind of makes no sense.
Here we go. I'll make the phrase again so you don't get it wrong. The second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth because it's not an isolated system. It's receiving lots of energy from the sun. It's not an isolated system. The second law of thermodynamics applies to isolated systems. The Earth is not an isolated system. It's receiving lots and lots and lots of energy from the sun. Therefore, you cannot apply the second law of thermodynamics to it. You
Rumpus, where did they discover the second law? Where did they discover it?
Where? Well, they thought about it very hard. It wasn't discovered in a particular place. I think it was who was I think it's probably was it Maxwell or Carnot? There's a Carnot, I think, may have been the person who first proposed the concept called
Was it not discovered here on
Sorry,
Earth?
hold on a second. Hold on. He asked where?
Was it Clausius?
Sorry, that's a who. It seems your comprehension of English
In
is bad.
someone's head.
Shut up!
Clausius is
Shut
dead.
up! Shut up! You don't seem to be able to distinguish between where and who. So, do you want to ask your question again, Paul? Because of Rumpus, who's now talking, of course. Rumpus's lack of comprehension of basic English. The distinction in this case between, shut up, Rumpus, you're a moron, I'm having to explain basic English. The difference in this instance is between who and where. When asked where something was discovered, you don't need to give a person's name, you complete fucking moron. I appreciate your level of comprehension of English is poor and that you don't know the difference between the word where and the word who. Because when asked where something was discovered, you've babbled on about who discovered it because you are fucking stupid.
No, you're a moron. You don't understand.
No. You are fundamentally retarded. You answered a who question when asked a where question, admirably demonstrating your poor comprehension of English.
1 + 1 is equal to 2 was discovered.
Sorry, now you're talking about maths. I'm talking about English. You're now having trouble distinguishing between mathematics and English. Now, we can get onto your poor mathematical skills later. At the moment, I'm pointing out your poor English skills. When asked where something was discovered, you've detailed who. Now, that's poor comprehension.
Question.
That's what
Poor
my
comprehension, sunshine.
I'm giving you answers, Nathan, but you're not listening.
Listened closely. Do you answer with people's names to a where question? So I am going to hold you to account for your poor listening or comprehension skills. Now, we all know that you can't listen. You talk non-stop. But when this happens, I will stop proceedings to point out how stupid you are. The fact that you're constant talking means you have an inability to comprehend. In this case, the distinction between who and where. Non-stop talking will get highlighted as you being inability and having an inability to process basic English.
Because of mass times acceleration. Or
No, he's just ignoring every
gonna
word.
go to the
Bye-bye,
toilet
Rumpus.
where he
Bye-bye.
discovered it.
You have to listen to me here, or I remove you. Deciding that it's going to be the Rumpus show isn't going to fly. When I'm pointing out that you've answered who when asked where, that doesn't mean you go on and on and on and on and on, indefinitely talking through me so that nobody in Discord can hear. It means that I will bend you over, you little man, and spank your little ass, and point out that your comprehension skills are poor. That's what's going to happen, not your incessant talking, you pathetic, disobedient little child.
Good morning, bully boy.
Oh, what's this? Somebody who thinks a donut hole represents a physical manifestation of space-time.
It does. It does. I gave
It does. Let's just point out that time is a concept before this bitch talks all over me indefinitely, and say that the centre of a donut does not represent space-time. Space-time being a concept and you being a moron.
Space-time is not a concept. It's a physical part of the universe. Time is not a concept. Time is...
Yeah, it is. Time is most definitely a concept. You're never going to show me a box of time. It's not a physical thing. You are retarded. This is why you get sworn and shouted at. It's annoying. I've already told you this. I've made it plain. You're never going to bring me a box of time.
Oh, or a donut.
Oh, yeah, she might bring me a donut. She's pretty infatuated
Okay,
with
Brenda
me.
sent Nathan a donut, and he will take into consideration your argument for gravity. How about that?
Bring me a box. Bring me a box of donut holes. Can you do that? Can you bring me a box of donut holes? Yo, thicko, moron, person that thinks I'm bullying them when I point out their stupidity. Can you bring me a box of donut holes? Maybe
The
polo
devil
holes.
keeping warrior.
I want to be
Measure
able to
time.
distinguish. I want to be able to distinguish that they're not polo holes. I want to be certain that you'll bring me a box of donut holes and not fobbing me off with polo holes. How will I be able to distinguish between these two different holes that you're going to bring me a box of because you think this is real, space-time being a donut, you complete retard?
Nathan, can you hear me?
I can hear you talking about space-time being the centre of a donut, and I'm asking you whether or not you'll respond to my very pertinent and clear question that I want a box of donut holes. Donut holes being representative of space-time in your total buffoonery. Yes, I can hear you. You're humiliating your side by saying space-time is represented being not physical by a donut hole, when I'm asking you to bring me something like space-time that I can examine physically. So, based on the absurdity of your declaration that a donut hole is space-time, I'm asking you to bring me a box of them and tell me how I can distinguish between your box of donut holes and a box of polo holes. That's what I'm asking. Can you do that?
Yeah, I could. Yes.
Tell me how I'll be able to distinguish between the polo holes and the donut holes.
Doubling down
The donut holes will have donut around them, and the polo holes...
No, that's donut. I don't want the donut. That's just a very thin donut. I want the donut hole. Now, clearly, she's also got problems with her comprehension of English. She doesn't seem to understand the difference between a hole and the rubble that's removed to make the hole. Do you not understand what a hole is? It's the absence of something. Again, like Rumpus, you've got very poor comprehending skills. No, I don't want to see the surrounding bit. I want to see the absence. Now, this is absurd, Brenda. You can't show me a hole, can you? It's the absence of something. You'll show me the surrounding bit. Now, what you've basically asserted there is to say that space-time is the surrounding bit of a donut. It's beyond absurd, love.
Yes, the lining of the hole is the hole.
I am getting like all kinds of bad double tones here.
No, that's not correct. Space-time is not physical. You won't be showing me this merry dance of donut holes is absurd.
Yeah, Brenda, your concept is ass.
The lining of the hole is the hole.
In the donuts with her cock.
And you can order donut holes from any shop.
This is stupid. Have you got
Can you
anything
see-
rational to add? Have you got anything coherent to add?
Yes, I do. Yes. Do clocks measure time, Nathan?
Measure?
No.
Sorry, did you say measure?
Clock?
Measure?
Yes,
So
yes.
I don't give a
Yes.
shit. Can you show it me in physicality? That's the point. You telling me another way of measuring it doesn't change the fact it's not a real thing, it's not physical. You can't bring me a box of time. You stupid cow. Do you think telling me a different way of measuring it's going to change that? It's a concept.
How can clocks measure concepts?
They don't. They don't.
So
you can
clocks-
deduce how much time has passed with them. Deduce it.
No,
but they
no,
don't measure.
what
time.
period? Time being something arbitrarily assigned to the sections on that clock face. Something we will have assigned to it. A period we will have designated with numbers. So no, that doesn't reify the concept of time having an arbitrarily assigned period given to a clock face. No, that doesn't reify time. That's just a clock, Brenda.
Brenda,
So
if
clocks don't
time was
measure
real,
time,
you wouldn't
then.
be able to dilate it.
Measure. We're back to measuring, are we, spastic? Look, dickhead, I'm tired of this shit. Time is not real. It is a concept. Now, while I appreciate you fundy morons need to reify time into existence because you're told by priests that it's the fabric of your existence, it isn't! It's a fucking concept! You've just been duped!
How can clocks measure?
Don't ask me anything else about clocks. That's not showing me time. Time being a concept. This arbitrarily assigned period on a clock face is not the physicality of a concept. This is a mere reification, and I'm tired of it. The fact you fundies have been duped into believing that space-time is a fabric is merely your reification of what a priest told you. It does not make the concept of time actually real. It's not even described as real by the originator. It's described geometrically as pseudo space-time. So they're not even lying to you. They're not even pretending it's real. You fuckwits reify it. Now, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of you morons telling me time's real. It's not. It's arbitrary. It's a concept.
So what is it clocks measure then, Nate?
Brenda, is time dilation? Is the dilation of time real?
Yes, of course.
No, it isn't.
Well,
You can't bend time. You can't dilate it. You can't dilute it. You can't weigh it. It's not real.
Well, then what do clocks measure then? If it's not real,
I've just told you, an arbitrarily designated period in numbers by us. It doesn't give you physicality to the concept of time.
Is a foot an arbitrary unit of measurement of length?
Yardstick.
Yeah.
Is a yardstick. You measure. Hold on a second. Do you measure a football field with a yardstick? Yeah.
Yes.
Is
and
the
yardsticks are an
the
arbitrary
football
unit
field?
of measurement.
Is the yardstick a football field?
No, it's what you use to measure a
That's
football.
right.
So-
Same concept. Clown.
A yardstick is an arbitrary unit of length.
Yeah.
Nathan.
So
Right,
you're saying
how
the
is
clock
time
measures
calculated?
like the yardstick measures. Well, the yardstick doesn't make a football field real, and the clock doesn't make time real. Why are you so slow?
Nathan, is it possible?
So you agree that clocks use an arbitrary unit of measurement of time, right? Just like a yardstick is an arbitrary unit of measurement of length.
Of football fields,
the yardstick isn't the football field.
I never
Goodness
said it
gracious!
was.
Yeah, we don't need to explain this to her 3 more times. If she keeps asking us questions on this subject when it's blatantly obvious to anyone with half a brain, then she'll just get removed. We've explained it to you. You're thick, Brenda, if you think time's real. Now, if you can't cope with that, I'm sick of talking about it with you. I'm shouting it till I'm blue in the face, and you're asking me questions about it, like I need to justify to what is now obviously a moron that time isn't real. It isn't. No matter how much you say it, just because your priest told you that space-time's a fabric. It isn't. That's just bullshit. Sorry, you don't have to like it.
Nathan,
Could I ask Brenda a couple of questions?
Real? Is length real, Nathan?
Is light real? Yeah. Light's definitely real. It's not a concept. I can see things.
No, I asked if length is real. Is length?
Sorry, you're not in a position to ask me so overarching philosophical questions, Brenda. You are fundamentally retarded. So you asking me this very deep philosophical question is kind of meaningless, because not only will I know that you don't know the answer, but you probably don't realise the purpose of your question. It's just a segue away from the fact that you've tried to reify time for the last 20 minutes till we're screaming at you in the blue, till we're blue in the face, that it's not real. But you seem to want to not accept that, and I'll say it again, because priests have described a geometry that is not real, pseudo, as a fabric, when it's not. That's merely a mathematical description of something, reified into existence by people like yourself, Brenda, who are too stupid to realise that it's a mathematical description of something, and it's not a real fabric.
Nathan,
Is length real, Nathan? It's just a simple question. Is length real?
Length being the measurement of something when you've just had this exact... Should I remove her, John? I don't want you screaming at her that the yardsticks on the football field 4 times.
This is the acme of...
John,
It's
could
the
I just ask her a couple of questions?
Oh my God. Now I got friggin' Brian jumping. Did he ask me, is your name John?
No.
Then why are you speaking?
I was trying to ask
For
something.
fuck's sake, man. Ask him. He's fucking John now.
I'm going to
know your place. Know your place, Brian. Know your place.
I do, Brenda.
You successfully diverted from space-time donut. Can we get back to that if you're going to stay on the show?
No, space-time donut was an obfuscation. Maybe
I'd be
we should get
happy
back
to talk
the
about
question that was
space-time
posed.
donuts.
Where did all the oceans come from? If space doesn't exist and the comets and meteorites that provided the oceans couldn't possibly have existed either. That was the point that we were on. I didn't even realize this was real.
Okay.
I thought this
You
was
want to talk about that? You want to talk about that? Right?
Not with you.
I'd like to ask Brenda a few questions. Because I thought you were going to kick Brenda, and I wanted to ask her a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian. Fair enough.
If you don't mind.
Brian, you can email me. My email's on my.
I don't want to
page on my
email you now.
YouTube channel.
So either you're willing to answer questions or you're not. You're bringing up time as a reality. I'm going to ask you a few questions about time. You're willing to answer them.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, fine. I'm open.
Right.
I'm completely open.
Well, you know, time. You have a mobile phone, yes? A digital clock,
No,
a television,
I don't.
things like that.
I don't have a mobile.
But you have some form of digital. You know about digital time, yeah? You've seen it. Have you? You've
I
seen
don't
time
know
on
what
digital
digital
clocks?
time is. I don't know what do you mean by digital time? Time is just
Have you seen time on a digital clock? Have you seen time on a
Of
mobile
course.
phone?
Yes.
Yeah. Where does that come from? That comes from UTC time, doesn't it? It originates from
it
UTC
comes-
time, formerly Greenwich Mean Time.
If
yeah?
you're gonna, Brian, if you're gonna ask me questions, you have to allow me to answer.
Okay, off you go.
It comes from measuring times. The computers measure time because they have built-in clocks that measure.
That wasn't the question I asked you, Brenda. I asked you, where did the time that you get on your phone or on a digital clock, where does that come from? On your computer, where does that come from?
Yeah. It comes from measuring time. Ultimately, I understand it comes from a UTC.
Who measures the time? Who measures this time? Who gives us our time on our phones and our clocks?
There's a clock on your motherboard.
Yeah, who gives electronically gives that time to my motherboard when I'm connected to the internet? Like
Nobody gives
let's just say, one.
Your computer has on the motherboard has a clock.
Yeah.
And it is
I know that, Brenda. That's not what I asked you. Where does it come from? I asked you where does the time that clock
from
gets
the manufacturer.
Where does
it
that
comes
where
from the
does the time come
manufacturer,
from, Brenda?
Brian.
Where does the
when you ask me questions, talking over me is just gonna get things confused. So
yeah, but you keep on answering things I didn't ask you, Brenda.
The clock is on the motherboard, and it is synchronized with the central clock time server.
Yeah, UTC time. Yeah, UTC time is the mean time. Yeah, formerly Greenwich Mean Time.
Your computer.
What is UTC
synchronized.
time based on? What is UTC time based on? Is it based on the movements of the sun?
Well, they have a clock.
No, is it based on the movements of the sun? Is UTC time based on the movements of the sun?
I don't know what the UTC time is based on. I don't know.
Well, you're trying to say that time is a real thing, and also claim that time dilation is a real thing. Now, time and time dilation can't be two real things. If time dilation is real, time can't be real.
Why not?
Because you can't bend and twist and speed up and slow down something that's real. You can't do that with a real thing. You can't manipulate it like that.
I can bend.
To change time.
Yeah, Plato.
Time,
will you shut up, Brenda? He's trying to answer you. You've just levelled a criticism only less than 2 minutes ago that if he talks over you while he's talking, it'll get confusing. Shut up! Go ahead, Brian.
I
okay.
wasn't even
talking. Right, last fucking chance. Oi! Sorry, Brian.
Okay.
What's your problem? You want me shouting at you? Is that what you want? Masochist.
I'll tell you, Brenda, where your UTC time comes from. All UTC time is based off the rotation, shape, and size of a globe with an equator of 24,900 miles around. It's based off that globe's rotation over 24 hours and that globe's position on Kepler's analemma, offset elliptical analemma of the sun. It has nothing to do with the sun. So all time that you're talking about as being so real is all based off a concept that has never been proven and based off an analemma that was taken from an original solar analemma, mixed in with the Copernican model and made into an amalgamation, a mutation. So you have to prove some load of other stuff real before you can even get to time. Because all time is based off the rotation of a globe, not to do with the sun.
Yeah, people have known the Earth as a globe for 2,000 years, Brian.
So what she's saying is, I already begged the question that Earth is a sphere, and because I've got a fundy religious belief in a sphere, all outcomes that are based on that sphere are automatically deemed as legit and justifiable, because I'm begging the question here. Oh, right, well, we don't allow people to beg the question, Brenda. So what, based on your fundy belief in a sphere, time's legitimately real? Yeah, we know that, Brenda. We realise you're a fundamentalist religious zealot. We know. But that's not a justification, the fact that you beg the question and automatically assume time is based on a spinning sphere planet. Yeah, well, that's bollocks now, isn't it? Because you can't prove any of that shite. So time and the arbitrary assignment of it is just that. Arbitrary. Not real. A concept.
We can.
Nathan, can I ask the
those
question
things,
real
Nathan.
quick
You just
regarding
deny
that?
that's a proof. We can prove those things. You're just a denier.
Sorry, that's not a
Wait,
rebuttal.
wait,
Based on
minute,
you
this
begging
is
the question of a
important.
spinning
I've
ball
got an important
sphere.
question.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
We haven't defined what time is. We got to define it so we can know what we can do with it. So we've been talking about time. We talked about measurement of time, but we haven't talked about what time is. Can somebody, Brenda, whoever, define time? And then we can really discuss it. But so far, I've not heard anybody defining what time is.
I'll do that.
Time is change, isn't it?
definition.
Time is change.
That'd be entropy.
Time.
No, that'd be entropy.
So time defined
No,
as
no, that's
defined
not what
as-
entropy is.
Yo,
You don't know what
that would not
you don't
be
understand entropy,
time.
Nathan.
That would not be time. That would be entropy.
No, you're wrong. You don't know
Let's
what
not
entropy
hear it,
is.
Brenda.
What is entropy?
Yeah, Brenda. Sleeping Warrior's going. You interrupted him. I'm shutting you down. Not so that you can enter into you're wrong. I'm stating something as fact. You don't have to like it, but it's Sleeping Warrior's time to talk. Thanks, love. Sit your ass back down.
definition of time, the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and the future regarded as a whole. So it's the indefinite continued progress. That's what it says.
I would
Yeah,
define
it's
it
change,
as
isn't
it's
it?
conceptual or perceptual.
She didn't
It's
listen
either
to me.
conceptual or perceptual, and none of them are real.
After them
Sorry,
boarding
Nathan.
out.
You can have a
Hello, Adam.
you can have concepts about things that are real.
Yeah, that's true. That's correct. Yeah, I can get you to conceptualize a car I'm driving, and your idea of the car would be a conceptual car, wouldn't it? It's not the actual car, but there is actually a
Right,
car.
right,
And
that's-
I haven't finished talking, bitch. Yeah, are you a masochist? Is this something you're getting some sexual pleasure out of? That's a serious question I want to answer
I was
to.
just saying, right. This is
Yeah,
the way people talk.
this is
Nathan.
the third
I was
time.
just saying, right.
This is the third time I've told you to shut the fuck up. I'm asking a different question. Are you a masochist? Are you deriving some sort of sexual pleasure from me telling you to shut the fuck up? I notice you're not answering me. She's not saying no, I'm not a masochist deriving sexual pleasure from this. She's gone silent. So, I will take your awkward, uncomfortable silence as you deriving some sick pleasure from this. You annoying me, that is.
Are
Yeah,
you
shut up.
projecting again, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm telling you to shut up. Because you're interrupting people while they're detailing things that are more complex than your mere brain can comprehend. But you're interrupting. Your lack of comprehension in regards to conceptual things is something I'm trying to now detail. Yes, you can have things both be conceptual in your mind as I describe something to you, like a car, but also physical. But that doesn't mean that things that are only conceptual can be reified by religious zealots because they have a belief they're on a spinning sphere. Our point.
So wouldn't criticizing me saying time as a concept be affirming the consequent?
Do you want to put it into an affirming the consequent with if P then Q, Q therefore P, and my example with time being a concept as that affirming the consequent? Formulate it into the fallacy and then explain it. Go ahead.
No, wouldn't that be affirming the consequent? Obviously.
Yeah, you're asking me like it's your claim. Oh, well, I'll just say no then. Will that shut you up? No, it's not.
Do
Nathan,
clocks measure
can
time?
I ask
Do clocks
Brenda a
measure
quick
time?
question? If that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Meryl.
I have an email. I have an email. People are free to
Brenda.
email me.
Nobody
and we
wants
can
to
discuss-
email you.
Brenda,
yeah, nobody wants, especially after that
Brenda-
long silence when I asked if you were drawing some sort of pleasure from it and you didn't answer no. You think people want to email you now? What, you're using this as some sort of dating site? We're debating about the nature of Earth. She's here to pick people up. Stop giving out your email. Nobody wants to contact you.
A flat Earth debate.
Well, Brenda, I just want to ask if that's okay. Do you know what the word contrary means?
Yes, contrary.
Are you being contrary at the moment?
No, I'm not.
Well, the thing is, time, you can't go up and down time. You can't see its length, its depth, its breadth. It can't be treated like a physical operation. You can't hold it.
Hey, how Rafe? Long time no speak.
Hey, good to have you.
Yes, you can do all those things.
Well, I need to have a slice of time then. I'm going to need to manipulate it. And if
Sure, just look at your clock. It will give you a slice of time.
No, it won't.
Well, I mean, the clock is only for performing mechanically to try to, evenly mark what we consider time. That's the physical operation of a clock. That's not time.
Yeah,
we
clocks
haven't
measure
come
time.
to consensus on what time is. Wait a minute. We haven't come to consensus on what time is.
Yeah, he just said
What is
he's
time?
already-
Brenda,
he's
let
made-
Brenda define time.
He's made it clear in his description, though, what we consider time. Yeah, that's because it's arbitrary.
Yeah, the clocks measure time the way a ruler.
What we have
measures-
assigned as time. It's she's just completely and totally ignored my last statement. No. What we consider, those very specific words were used because it's arbitrary. Not real. It's just arbitrary. Do you know what arbitrary means?
Ruler is an arbitrary unit of length. Yes. That doesn't mean it doesn't measure length. Time
That's correct.
Can be an
yeah.
arbitrary unit of time. That doesn't mean it isn't.
I understand what you're trying to say, Brenda, that, the ruler is measuring something that's real. The clock is measuring something that's real, but that's where it splits. The thing has length which can be physically operated on. The clock, not so much. You can't touch time like you can touch something that's being measured with a ruler most of the time. And say that they're the same on that level's a little off because one can be physically measured with length. One is more of a conception. You can't really touch the other one.
Right. Let's end it.
Right.
Let's end it. You detailed. Hold on, Brenda. Let's just end this right now. Let's just end this. So all clocks therefore give you the same period of time.
Clocks measure.
No, they
the
don't,
passage of
because
time.
due to relativity, time can dilate.
Oh right,
Well,
I see.
Brett, I'm sure you've heard my contention that space-time, this conception is probably the ether. That ether is probably filling space, and time is probably running
doing that
because
on this show.
it's running
Lemon
through
Park, knucklehead. You are not doing it on this show. I friggin' pounded you yesterday with this horseshit. I don't care if giraffes were brought up. This fucking clown is gonna bring up ether. You're not doing it on it. Where the fuck are you? You're out of here.
So you detailed a clock
Yeah,
earlier.
ether was disproven.
Sorry, Brenda.
Ether was
I'm
disproven
trying to draw a conclusion.
Yeah,
Clearly, that means
Brenda.
you need me to shout at you to shut up, right? So you described a clock on a computer motherboard. How does that clock work? What's that doing?
Yeah.
What kind of clock
It's
is that?
measuring time.
Oh, really? It's not measuring oscillations.
That's what measuring time is.
No,
measuring
that's
the oscillations of a
Brenda.
quartz crystal.
No, Brenda. Sorry, no. The arbitrarily assigned designation of time on a clock is fundamentally different to the number of oscillations of a crystal. Did you not know that?
No, the change.
Sorry, not no. Was that no, I didn't know that?
crystal.
Or no, the number of oscillations of a crystal is fundamentally different to the movement of a hand on a clock? Did you not know that? Or you're saying, no, that's not. They are the same.
yeah.
The number of crystal oscillations is the same of the movement of a clock. An arbitrary period we have assigned to those hands. You think the two are the same, do you? Oh, you're wrong. They're not.
If I use a wooden yardstick,
We're not using a wooden yardstick. Yo, I want you to address what I've just said. Yo, we're not talking about your false equivalence that you're now making. I've given you specific criteria, an example, based on what you said earlier in regards to a computer. And I'm asking you if you understand that they're fundamentally different. Now, their uses... Brenda, yeah, you've already fucked me around with your stupid stick. And I'm sick of it. The two are different.
They're different instruments.
No, they're
Same
totally
substance.
different principles.
No, the principle is change.
No change. Quite the contrary, in fact. Consistency in the oscillations of the crystal. You think it's change? Oh, no.
Yeah.
They're utilising... Shut up, bitch. Not change. I already explained that would be fucking entropy, but you just hand-waved that. No, they utilize the consistency of the oscillations, not change. Didn't you? I've already established in your answers that you don't fucking realize that the oscillations of a crystal is what's being used as a clock in things like digital to analog converters, where they take binary information. Another problem with, I thought that's where someone was going when they asked you about a digital clock, where you get the period in between. Because obviously time's linear, but yet a description, arbitrary again, of time can be expressed digitally. Well, that makes no fucking sense when time's absolutely linear. So we've got all sorts of problems with these arbitrary assignments of what's called time and what's called a clock. Got crystal oscillations. We've got the number of cycles of light and darkness. We've got all these different ways of measuring what you've arbitrarily assigned as being real, but in fact has got many different arbitrary assignments of how it comes to pass. And as Paul rightly points out, we're yet to have a succinct definition of what time actually is. And we can't do that because it's our arbitrary assignment of specific periods. Or oscillations of a crystal, for example. But you don't realise any of this, Brenda. You're the dumbest person here.
Time is just change, and crystal oscillations...
Yo! Crystal oscillations and their consistency are described in electronics as a clock.
Yes.
So what are you talking about change?
Because the crystal oscillates between two different states. That's a change.
Sorry, it's just oscillating consistently.
Yeah, but it's
Can I
changing.
let me ask her a question real quick, Nathan. How do you dilate change? So.
By moving at relativistic speeds. Because space and time are one thing.
Yes.
You're there, the one.
Ask that question, Nathan. Sorry.
Go ahead, the one.
Brenda, how much time is there in a cubic meter of space, and how much space is there in an hour?
That's what I was going to ask.
The time it takes to go from point A to point B.
No, not from...
Answer the question.
Not from one side of a box
I
to
did.
the other.
I did.
In a cubic meter. We're not travelling anywhere. We've just got a cubic meter. A box is in front of me. And he's asking how much time's inside that space. Given that you think space-time's real, surely you'll be able to quantify the amount of time in a cubic meter. Won't you, Brenda?
And how could we calculate it?
I can. Yeah, it's x squared plus y squared plus z squared, right? Plus, what was it? T squared.
That's T squared, did you say?
Oh, it's minus c squared or about times t squared. Yeah.
What's C and what's T?
That's what space time. That's what space time is.
So he's asking you how much T. So do you want to give us based on the? Sorry, do you want to extrapolate that? I'm sure you can reverse that equation to calculate for T. Then, correct? How much T is in, and we'll give you the parameters. Let me just think of it for a second. A square meter. Calculate for T. How much is that?
So, what? No, I don't have to do calculation.
Yo, fuckwit. Calculate for T is the question. You seemed a moment ago to be mathematically competent. Now I've already pointed out to my audience that you're by far and away the dumbest person here. Now we're asking you, given that you've seemingly got this mathematical knowledge, to calculate for T. Go, moron. You're maths boffin, right?
It would be 1 times 1. Okay, it would be 1 times 1 times 1 minus c squared. C squared is the speed of light, right? Over the time it takes to travel that 1 unit.
We're not traveling anywhere. You're not listening. We're not traveling anywhere. Are you dumb? Are you stupid? How much T is in a square meter? Calculate for T. You seem to give us a formula. Do you not know how to rearrange your own formula? Are you just pretending to know maths?
We're not talking about objects in a square meter.
I just need you to... Owen, hold on. I just need you to rearrange the formula that you seemed so clever with a minute ago to calculate for T. We've given you the dimensions. You've got everything you need. You've got your formula that you obviously understand. You just need to rearrange it to calculate for t. That's what we're asking you for. Not the parameters of your calculation that you bullshitted you know about. Clearly you don't. You could rearrange it and to calculate for t, but you don't seem to be doing that. So what's t? What's the answer?
I just told you.
What was the number? Was it given us as a number, as a value? Are we going to take a weight out of it? What's the answer? How much t it is in a square meter? You've given us a calculation to seem clever. Now we're asking you to rearrange your formula to calculate for that t you're being asked about. And you've told me you've already given the answer when we were asking you the same question 6 times. No. Are you hallucinating, love? Strong medicine, love. No? You haven't fucking answered us, you dumb shit. Why do you think we're still asking? How much t's in a square meter, you complete fucktard? You haven't answered already.
3
I told you
liters.
it's 1 times 1 times 1 minus the square of the speed of light over t squared.
Yeah, what's t then? So you're going to rearrange that and calculate for t?
T is the amount of time.
Yeah, not what it is. What's the answer? We're asking you to calculate it. How much t in a square meter? Are we ever going to get to the answer? Are you ever going to rearrange your formula to actually calculate for t? Or were you just pretending to know what maths is? Giving us a formula you read off some piece of paper that you didn't understand and therefore couldn't rearrange with your mathematical competency that you don't have?
T squared is the time between A and B.
So what is it
formula
then?
Is
yeah,
S
okay.
squared.
Yeah, I understand. You're very
equals-
mathematical boffinry. Yeah. So what's t then? Calculate for t. What is it? What's the answer?
It's the T
How much
is
t?
The interval between A
I don't
and
know what
B.
it, not what it is. What's the answer? How much t is there in a square meter? Can you give us the answer? Can you calculate for t, please? Or will we ever get to the point where you, a complete fuckwit, accepts that time's a concept and you're never going to be able to calculate for t and show us it because it's not physical or real, it's a concept? Maybe we'll ask you indefinitely if you can calculate for t in this formula and you tell me what calculating for t is and then not calculating it.
Well, first you calculate for X, Y, and Z, right? And then you minus CT squared. CT squared is the speed of light times the time from A to B squared.
Minus CT squared, square of light times V. Okay, cool. Go on then, do it then.
Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, I just have to hold in a second.
Go ahead, Brenda, then. I understand how you're now telling me that you will be doing it, what process you will do with the maths. Thank you. Thank you for telling me. Now do it. How much t is there in a square meter? You've told us, obviously demonstrating your competency of how you will do it. We know your workings out. Now give us the answer. How much t is there in a square meter?
Yeah. Not an explanation, a numerical value, please, Brenda.
17.
I think it's 42.
6.
I was thinking 42 as well.
And on these nonsense answers, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned into this complete buffoonery from Brenda. And obviously a massive thank you to all of the Discord and G+ panels for making this after show possible. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. A massive thank you to all of you in the premiering audience for tuning in, smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!